Hey, we're the leaf cutters, here to lend a hand for novice cigar smokers with tips so grand. Not pros, but we'll guide you right in our Porch cigar lounge, light up the night. Reach out, chat along, smoke with us where you belong. So grab a cigar, come on and stay. In our back porch lounge, we'll show you the way. The leaf cutters, together we'll ignite. With tips and tricks, we'll light up your night.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Back Porch Lounge. We are the Leaf Cutters, and we are not professionals, but we're here to help. And today we have the co-founder of RoMa Craft Tobacco, and that's Skip Martin.
Yay, Skip Martin.
Okay, Skip Martin. Skip has decided to come onto the show today because he's tired of Andy badgering him with emails and texts saying, please come on our show. So finally, Andy was able to, put him into submission, and he was nice enough to hop on here. So thank you, Skip.
You're welcome.
I think it's because I promised we wouldn't talk shop.
Promise what?
I said I promised we wouldn't talk too much shop.
Oh.
I mean, unfortunately, you can't get away from talking about cigars.
It was either this or help my wife pack. So.
Oh yes,
I choose this too.
I would choose this as well. Absolutely, 100%.
I got work to do. What can I do?
Yeah. Let me use that next
time. So we're going to introduce our cigars real quick. Going around the room, Andy, what are you smoking today?
I don't know, Zach, what am I smoking today? Because we picked this up at the same event. You got a better memory for names than I do.
That's a lie about the names thing, but I think, and Skip can pronounce it properly, is the quinquagenarian. Is that close?
Quinquagenarian. Close.
Okay.
Close enough for Louisiana to speak.
And I am smoking the Chillin' Moose because I cannot get anything RoMa Craft in Georgia. Now, let me take that back. Noonan, Georgia cannot get anything RoMa Craft because we've already established in a previous podcast we can't have any nice things in Noonan, Georgia.
It's not
come
good
to tobacco. Actually, I'm just screwing around. I also have one of the Universario, whatever you want to call it.
I think yours might be a Neanderthal.
Yeah, I think he said this might be a Neanderthal because of the flat cap.
Right. Those are segundos. It looks like.
Okay. Yeah.
So see how light that one is? It didn't make the cut. So.
Yeah. That's why Jason was handing them out to me like left and right at the event here a couple of months ago.
Yeah, we probably about, depends on the blend, but between 3 and 5% of our cigars. What happens is when you're making them, the wrapper's wet. You've gone through the process of sorting the wrapper and grading it, but once you put it on a cigar and it stretched out and it dries, you can sometimes see defects that you couldn't see before. So once it gets through the aging process, if a cigar is a bad cigar, like it's underfilled or has a soft spot or something's wrong with it at the table, that's called a fallo or a failure or a factory reject, right? That's about, I don't know, it's a very small number, maybe 1% or less. I mean, if somebody makes 400 cigars on a really, really bad day, maybe they have 5 or 10, but most days they maybe have 2. So it's a really low percentage. if it doesn't make weight, for example, if it's too heavy or too light. Once it gets accepted, it goes into the aging room, and once it comes out of the aging room, 3, 4, 5 months later, it goes to a table where they're sorting it for color, so that each box is the same shade, right? So if they see something like a nick on the wrapper, or the cap is coming off, or it's gotten damaged in the process of being moved around, it either becomes what's called a reemplazo, which is they replace the wrapper, or it's a segundo. The only reason it would be a reemplazo is if it's really bad, like like half the wrapper, like an inch of the wrapper got torn off or something like that. If it's a little aesthetic problem, it becomes a segundo, and so we end up with 40, 50,000 of those a year. And so historically we've smoked those ourselves. We've given them out kind of at the visitors or whatever. We've always sold them at the factory for $1 or $2. But we're really working on some way to get those to consumers without kind of undercutting the core cigars. Because as you guys can see, that cigar is light, but it's going to smoke perfectly fine. The other cigar may have some other aesthetic issue, but it's going to smoke perfectly fine. If I'm a consumer and I smoke Cro-Magnon EMHs, and I have the opportunity to buy the same cigar that's a little bit ugly at half the price, I'm going to do that, right? So, yeah. So we're working on a way, because to me the segundos are a great thing. Like how they say if you buy a box you get 5 free or whatever. I'm not a big fan of giving away 5 cigars, because what you're saying is that your cigars are not worth what they're worth. And but I think buying a box of cigars and getting 5 segundos, or buying a box, or giving a segundo to someone to try a brand, blind, and say, hey, did you like that? If you do, this is what that was. There's a lot of ways you can use the segundos that way. We're just working on how to do that.
Cool. That's a great idea.
But anyway,
It gives you an opportunity to get rid of the extra stuff.
Well, it is tasty as usual.
well, we're pretty particular about what gets the label on it. Of course, every factory has their own standard, but to me, a cigar doesn't have to be pretty to be good. But it also should be consistent, right? I mean, you shouldn't have anything too light. It shouldn't have 2 colors. The cap shouldn't be a different color. There shouldn't be a patch on it. There shouldn't be, if you're paying $10, $8 to $12 cigar, you should be getting a premium cigar.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
What are you smoking on there today?
Hey, what are you smoking? Yep.
I'm smoking an old, where's an old MK Ultra.
Nice.
Very nice.
It's probably 7, 8 years old, maybe. It's one of my favorite, lighter cigars.
Perfect cigar for before you get on a plane, right?
Yeah. And then I have after this, I have a Padron Hermoso, which it's $19.50, which is unreal.
Yeah, that's pricey.
That I still pay that.
Yeah.
See that?
See it.
But I really like this cigar. Our new Mastranza was basically so that I buy less of these.
That's an awesome plan. Let me blend something where I don't have to spend more money on other people's stuff.
Well, I mean, I've always bought other people's cigars. I mean, I'm a consumer first. I always have been since the 90s. But, and I don't mind spending the money on good cigars, but, $20 for a 4-inch cigar is, that's yeah, it's a lot for me. And, I have a little bit of money, but, that's also because I don't spend money on stupid things. So,
Well, that's a good way to keep money.
This is true.
right.
We're gonna keep money.
So on that topic, a $20 cigar is pretty pricey these days. I mean, it's starting to get a little bit more normal. Things are starting to get more in the $16 to $20 range for premium cigars. What makes you take that leap of faith to actually try, a $20 cigar, a $23 cigar? What actually is your judgment on that? What influences you?
Well, I mean, for me, if I see something I've never smoked before that looks interesting to me, I'm going to try it. But and I also believe if you're a guy who smokes, 1 or 2 cigars a week, maybe, there's really not that much of a difference between an $8 cigar and a $20 cigar. In terms of, it's like, renting a movie versus going to the movie. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. But if you smoke like I do, always have, 4, 5, 8 cigars a day, it starts to make a big difference. So, that's the challenge for me is, we make cigars for guys who smoke 4 or 5 cigars a day, and three cigars a day or 2 cigars a day. You want to make them, have the right body and strength for those kinds of guys, but you also want to, in flavor, but you also want to make sure that they're a good value. Value, I think, is, kind of a stolen word. It's kind of become synonymous with cheap, but really value is kind of the combination of quality and price. It's like good quality at a good price. I mean, value can happen at a higher price. Coop is mad at me right now, but still, because he put $100 cigar on his value cigar list, which is fucking ridiculous.
Right.
But I think let me explain what I mean by the value. So, and I've said this on a couple of different places, so it's nothing new. But I don't know if one of you guys is a quick mathematician, but a cigar basically has 3 or 4 cost components. 1 is the filler and the binder. 2 is the wrapper. 3 is the labor. 4 is how much the factory kind of has to make as a profit to justify being in business. Then you have the freight and the federal excise tax to get it to the United States. And then you have the margin that the company, the brand has, and then you have the margin that the store has, right? So, just so everybody understands kind of the economics of cigars, you can go backward. So, if a cigar is $10, and this would be in a state that has no tobacco taxes, right? That cigar, the person who's selling that cigar bought it for $5, most likely. That's called keystone margin. So, a $4 wholesale cigar is $8. A $6 wholesale cigar is $12. A $20 wholesale cigar probably costs them $10. Probably not, but I'll get to that. So, the store is making double the money of whatever they buy. And there isn't very many things in the world today that are actually priced that way. But the reality is, if you pop a store kind of anywhere, where they'll still allow you to smoke, and especially if that store can't sell other things like alcohol, like a bar. If you think about how many people in the United States smoke, within the distance of driving and hanging out at that store, or being able to buy cigars there and take them somewhere else, the fewer and fewer people smoke, the harder it is for a single store to generate enough revenue, to generate enough profit to make the whole thing make sense. And that's kind of why Keystone margins have become more standard, is because, or are the rule, is because, an average store has got to do, 600, 700, 800,000, in order to generate a decent salary for kind of the owner operator, right? And a
Right.
few employees. So, if you think about 600,000, if a cigar costs, $12, they've got to sell, 50,000 cigars a year or something, right? Call it
Yeah.
5,000 cigars a month, 1,200, 1,300 cigars a week, something like 200 cigars a day. So a store has to do somewhere between 100, 200 cigars a day. If you take the people who smoke very seldomly and the people who smoke kind of once a week or twice a month, and then you take the people who, you follow what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
they have to be able to generate, I don't know how, any given store, there's so many people that smoke around them. And then there's a very few that smoke more than one or two a day. And the people that smoke one or two a day just aren't buying it from the stores anymore. So I'm not saying that 100% markup isn't fair. I understand why it has to exist, for stores. But starting from the other end, right? Everybody in the chain can't make double their money. If they did, cigars wouldn't be affordable. It would make no sense. So, if you take the most expensive filler in the world, maybe it costs $20 a pound. I don't know. I've never seen tobacco worth $20 a pound. But maybe it exists. I don't know. So maybe Cuban tobacco, even Cuban tobacco, I pay less than $12 a pound. So I don't, but let's say $20 a pound. If you're using 40 pounds per thousand, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about 80 cents per thousand, 80 cents a cigar, right?
Yeah.
At 20 pounds a thousand, the most expensive filler you could possibly find. It's been fermented slow and low forever. It's been aged in a warehouse for 10 or 15 years and lost some of its weight. I mean, it's the most expensive filler you can find. The most expensive wrapper is somewhere around $80 a pound at 10 pounds per thousand. So you're talking about another 80 cents, right?
Yeah.
I was in Manhattan, and the guys making cigars in downtown Manhattan, one of the most expensive places in the world, were making about 70 cents a cigar, right? So now you're talking about $2.30 a cigar of material and labor. To get that on a boat or a plane and get it to the United States and pay the 40-cent S-chip excise tax, you're talking about 60 cents, right? So now
Yeah.
So now you're talking about $2.90. So let's say the brand doubles their money and it's 6, right?
Yeah.
And then the store doubles their money, it's still $12. And that's theoretically the most expensive cigar in the world that you can make, right?
Yeah.
Most cigars don't cost $2.90 to make. Most filler is half that price. Most wrapper is half that price. Most labor is half that price. So most cigars cost $1.50-ish to make. And if you have your own farms and you have your own curing barns and those kinds of things, maybe they cost half of that, right?
Wow.
Of course, the farms themselves have to make a little bit of a profit too, right? But
Right.
so let's call a cigar $1.50. It comes to the United States, $2.10. Let's say the what we make is about 50% margin. So call it $1.05. So that's $3.15. So $6.30, $7.50, something like that is a fair price for a cigar, right? Now,
Yeah.
when you start advertising and you start having road salespeople that are staying in hotels and holding the hand of the retailer, and you start or paying them 15-20% to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or and I could go on, or if there's a brand owner in the middle that isn't the actual importer, there's another layer of profit. Or if the brand owner doesn't own the factory, then there's another layer of profit, right? So that's how you end up getting cigars that really should be $7-8 that cost $11-12,
Got it.
right? So that King Guajanario we went and bought from Ernie in the Dominican. I had the boxes made in Nicaragua because I couldn't find the right kind of wood that I liked in Dominican. It cost me almost $15,000 just to get the boxes to Ernie. So the box is 3x more than it should be. I'm paying a profit to Ernesto Carrillo to make that cigar that I don't require of myself. Then I have to, there's other costs. That's why that cigar is $15. If I had made that cigar in my own factory, I probably could have sold it for $12.50, $12, right?
Yeah.
So when I say value, what I'm saying is, if you understand what it costs to make something, and you take out all the things that are not a part of the experience of enjoying that thing or consuming that thing, the less of that there is. If you take a craft beer bottle, a friend of mine owned a brewery, or still owns a brewery, and he had a graph that showed what percentage of the bottle was how much it costs to make it, how much it costs to bottle it, how much it costs to pay the taxes and the regulations, the labels, stuff like that, how much it costs to distribute it, how much the store makes, etc. And it's a very small percentage of what's in that bottle actually is in the quality of the beer that's in the bottle, right? Now, an American stout from a craft brewery, maybe that's 24%. Miller Lite, maybe it's 4%, right? But Miller Lite,
I'm just saying.
right? But Miller Lite, doesn't charge $8 a bottle, right?
Right.
So, if you're an informed consumer, on some level, what something costs to make versus what you pay for it is irrelevant. On some level, you pick it up and go, hey, I know exactly what the cigar is going to taste like. I know that is what I want right now. And you light it and cut it, it draws, and you enjoy it, and it tastes exactly the way you want it to taste. Maybe $20 is the fair price, right? I don't know. Every person has to decide on their own whether that is or not a fair price to them.
Yeah.
For me, it's something I can afford to do for myself, and I don't mind giving a little bit of money to the Padrones. I know they don't waste it on a lot of excess sales and advertising and fancy packaging, and they just pocket the money, and good for them. But I also know that they reinvest that, and they have 50 people from their family working for them, and so I don't think they're flying private jets and dating supermodels. They just take care of their family, right?
Yeah.
So for me, paying $20 every now and then, even though I know the store's getting $10 for that, or $220 of margin every time I buy that, when the amount of work it took them to sell that to me was very little. All they had to do was kind of have it in inventory, which
right.
It's hard. It's half the battle, right?
Yeah.
Some of them don't even do that very well. But for me, I don't feel like I'm getting ripped off smoking that cigar. every time I look at it and go, I can't believe I'm paying $20 for a cigar. And then I realize that I've worked my whole life, so fuck it, I'm going to enjoy it.
Right.
There you go.
But at the same time, I smoked this cigar, and this cigar cost $13.
Yeah.
I don't know what it cost at the time. You could probably look it up, what an MK Ultra Corona cost. I would
right.
guess 11 or 12 bucks at the time when I bought this
Yeah.
7 years ago. It's probably 20 now, but
Oh,
and I go, this is to me sometimes more enjoyable than that. So to me, it's a better value. And then I pick up one of our new Mastranzas, and it's $9, and I like it better than both of these combined, personally, and it's half the price, right?
Right.
Especially since it only cost me about $2 to smoke it. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a really good value. It's hard to beat.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a long ass answer to that's what I'm smoking.
No. No, that is like mind blowing information right there. I mean, I knew some of it, but you went into some detail that I had no even clue about. So thank you for that. My concern is more like something you haven't had before. Like, of course, if I walk into a shop that actually has RoMa, now that I've had it, I know I like that taste. I like that cigar. Maybe I would kick up a little bit more to pay a little bit more for a higher end RoMa just to try it, right? But when I'm trying something new, like the other day, I picked up a Placencia. I think it's Placencia, right?
Placencia, yeah.
Thank you. I paid $23 for it. First one I ever had, and I was just kind of like, meh.
Well, I would say that cigar is very much like this Padron. It's a great family. They own everything from the field all the way to the distribution company. They're great people. I know they take really good care of their employees. So they do reinvest a lot, back, kind of like the way Fuente does with Newman in the Dominican. Placencia does a lot of that, especially for its own employees in Nicaragua. Again, how much does it cost to go to the movie and watch a movie for 2 hours and get a bag of popcorn, right?
True.
So $23 for 2.5, 3 hours of kind of relaxation on a Sunday afternoon, if you do it once a month, it's almost a negligible expense, right?
Yeah.
But if you smoke, daily, it's hard to justify spending that kind of money on something you just, especially like when I smoke, sometimes I'm smoking while I'm working, I'm not paying attention. Sometimes I'm not sitting there contemplating, the complexities of the world and enjoying my $23 cigar. I do it because from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, I smoke. So, it's hard to justify, $160 a day cigar habit, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
I've done the math, and I kind of looked at, like, starting in the mid '90s, if I had taken every one of those dollars and put it into like the Dow Jones Industrial Average over the last 26 or 30 years, right?
30 years.
Yeah, I would have, millions of dollars more.
Yeah.
Right.
But, cigars are kind of at the center of my life. I mean, they're,
yeah, absolutely.
kind of the way cars were at the center of, Richard Shelby's life, or,
Right.
Golf is at the center of Tiger Woods' life, right? Cigars are kind of what's defined my life, kind of right there with career and kids and relationships. Cigars are, one of those things for me. And I make a living at it now too. So, my life would be a lot different if I had never smoked cigars.
When did you start smoking cigars, Skip? Was it pre-Navy
And I-
or
And I would have found something else to waste money on, I'm sure.
right?
Yeah.
No, I had smoked a cigar or two, kind of maybe, before the Navy. I had two things happen. One, a friend of mine who I went to nuclear power school with was on the Enterprise, which is a carrier, and I was on a submarine. And but our families were really close. We got married at the same time. Our wives were friends. We had kids at the same time. Went to all the school from boot camp through the Navy together. I don't know why he got into cigars, but he had bought this cheap, $20 box humidor with one of those, distilled water humidifying devices.
Mm-hmm.
And he had bought some Connecticut moneymakers, 80 Graves Connecticut moneymakers, the ugly broadleaf, no label.
Yeah.
And he had them in this box, and he was going out to sea for 6 months. And he said, "Hey, you think you could take care of these while I'm gone? You just got to open it every month or so, and fill up this thing with distilled water." Well, by the time he got back, all the cigars were gone. I had started smoking them, and I had to go to the local mall and find replacements. And because they had no label, it was, I thought it was going to be tough. But the guy at the mall is like, "Oh, I know exactly what this is," and they're really cheap. They're like a dollar a piece or something, or 80 cents a piece or something like that. And I'm like, wow, I thought I was going to really be in trouble for smoking all these cigars. So I filled it back up. Yeah.
Tell me that was a tinder box you went to.
No, it was a place called Emerson's, military, in the Military Circle Mall. So I think a bundle of 50, I think it was a bundle. I think it was like a bundle of 50 or a bundle of 100 maybe. I think it was a bundle of 50. Was like, $40 or something like that. So
wow.
I filled it back up, and then I emptied again, and then I filled it back up, and I emptied it again. So then by the time he came back, I had probably smoked through, 3 or 4 bundles of those things. I had a hammock in my backyard, and but anyway, I would smoke them to and from work. And there was an officer on my boat who was a cigar smoker, and he saw me one day kind of like smoking on the pier, or coming in or going home or something. He goes, "Oh yeah, I didn't know you smoked cigars." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm like a pro now." He's like, "What do you smoke?" I'm like, Connecticut moneymakers. He's like, "What's that?" He's like, "Cuban." I'm like, "No, I don't think it's Cuban." And I gave him one, and he almost got sick because it was so strong. And he goes, "That's a horrible cigar." He goes, next time we go out, you could be the phone talker and we'll smoke a cigar on the sail. Like, when a submarine goes in and out of port, it stays on the surface, and the part with the wings up top is called the sail. And there's always the officer of the deck, kind of driving the boat, and then a phone talker and a navigator, a quartermaster. So there's 3 people up there, and so it's the coolest watch you can get because you get to stay out watching the dolphins jump over the hull. And
yeah.
So
cool.
Anyway, so I started buying cigars from this store, the best cigars I could buy, because I couldn't find Cuban cigars, to get him to find cigars that he would like. But he only smoked like one every week or 2 weeks, and I was smoking like 3-4 a day, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's how I kind of got into Opus X. That's how I met Wayne Suarez, who was Cynthia Suarez Fuentes' first husband back then. This was like 90. This had to be like 92, 93. And then I got to know the retailer a lot better. At the time, he had a couple of mall stores. He had a downtown store, and bought my first humidor and just really got into it. Started going on trips, some of the first consumer trips that there were. When I moved to Chicago, I started going to a shop in Chicago called Up Down, which was owned by a woman named Dinah Silvis, who was also kind of another famous person in the cigar world. Met some more people, and then when I moved to Texas, I kind of found a retailer here called a place called Pipe World, and became really good friends with him. Of course, when you're spending $20,000 a year on cigars, you become a good customer pretty fast.
Right.
Then we had a house in Galveston. I would go to Galveston, and I would get up kind of frustrated that there was no good cigar stores. You had to stop somewhere in Houston before you got there. So my long story short, I ended up having a store in Galveston. It got hit by a hurricane after 2 or 3 years. But kind of, I went from being a consumer to kind of accidentally becoming a retailer. Then kind of, when the store got kind of destroyed, I kind of had a friend of mine, Doc Stogie Fresh, David Diaz. So I started doing kind of some articles and interviews for him for like a year or so, just so I could still go to the trade show. And then when the store got hit, that's when I kind of started talking with Mike about remaking a house cigar, and that kind of turned into the Cro-Magnon, which turned into RoMa, which turned into me buying a factory or building a factory. And now I've lived in Nicaragua for almost 12 years now.
Wow. Which do you like better, hanging out, living in Nicaragua, or coming up here and staying more often?
I always say, when people ask me that, I say, like, I've been here for more than a month, which is as long as I've been here in a long time, and I'm kind of ready to get back. Right? Yeah. I've eaten at all the restaurants. I'm tired. I'm tired of the traffic. I miss my dog. I miss going out. Being next to the ocean. But I'll go back there, and then I'll kind of get I'm sitting not having a good place to eat, whatever. Then I'll go to Esteli, for a week or two. Then I'll come back to San Juan, and then I'll get sick of the whole country, and I'll have to come back here. So it's nice to be able to go, different places.
So you have variety. You have variety in your life of where you live. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. It's nice to be able to get a change of scenery.
Yeah.
But I come here, I have a house, I open it up and, it's home, and then I go there and I open it up and it's home. So it's nice.
That's awesome. All right. So I guess we need to get to some serious questions here, because we did have some questions lined up for you. And first one right off the bat, what's your Xbox gamer score?
My gamer tag?
No, your score. No, don't put out your tag. I don't want people bugging you. But your score, your achievements.
I didn't even know there was one. I have no idea. I really have no idea.
That's like me. Perfect.
I've been playing it. I think I bought my first Xbox around like Madden 98, I want to say, or maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe 99. So I've always been an Xbox guy, but like last night I played for 15 minutes Call of Duty, and then I get frustrated that I'm getting killed by all the kids that want to fuck my mom and whatever. So yeah. I kind of like setting up my own kind of private match and playing the bots, just because I just like the no stress, like the sweaty hardcore whatever is, it's too much for me. Like I can't play. I like playing Madden against the computer if I'm playing rookie, but if I play Sean and Sean scores 97 points on me, I'm like, that's no fun. So.
John, you're taking the next couple of days off, buddy. Why? Did you see the score? That's it. That's why.
Yeah. So I don't know what my achievement score is. I have no idea.
We have a guy on the podcast that it's ridiculous. He's like way up there. And so that was definitely a question that we wanted to compare to him, see how much you play Xbox.
Well, I play this
'Cause I'm with
this
you.
game. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I play this game on my phone called Two Dots, and I'm on like level 6,300 and something. And like most
Oh,
people
dude.
are running, most people who play it are on like level 200 or something. So I play that way too much.
Yeah, flexing that a little bit.
Well, it's kind of like you know, to get to sleep or what when you're on a plane or whatever. So
Just something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Some time waster that you enjoy, do it. But I'm with you as far as Xbox goes. I'll play the CPU or the computer all day because I'm not putting myself in that kind of stressful environment.
right,
It's because there's so many assholes out there that just say random shit that's just stupid, and you're like, let's just play the game.
right.
That's why my oldest has I think he just like me, he mutes everybody in the lobby. You don't want to listen. Look, you don't need to go listen to the crap. Just play and have a good time.
I mean, I wish there were options. Just turn off all chat. Just
There is
don't chat.
Well, I don't wear a headset, and I end up muting most of the people at the beginning of every match. But back in the day, like when we were getting started with RoMa, there was probably 7 or 8 of us that would play pretty regularly on at night. So we just smoke cigars and shoot the shit, which is nice. Not the competitive yelling at each other stuff.
Yeah.
We yell at each other. It's more friendly banter at this point.
Yeah. But, it's coming from a place of love when you're doing it with your friends versus, just complete essence.
Right. And here, my waitress is here. Okay. I'll give you a tip.
I mean, at least you're nice enough to give a tip. I don't give a tip to my kid. I'm like, no, that's part of living here, kid.
Well, the tip's going to be sleep better and study. I'm going to have to plug my tablet in. So why do you not have RoMa? Like, how many shops are in your area, Gibbs?
I have 3. I have 3 shops in my area, and none of them carry RoMa. I don't know why. The closest one I can get, I finally used your finder to get it, and I think it was Boss Cigars out in Covington, which is like almost an hour away from me.
So
anywhere.
I assume with a podcast, you're close friends with your retailer, right?
Yeah, I talk to Tim all the time, who's my closest one, Thick Ash. Love that dude. He's the closest one I got, but
so why hasn't he called us and ordered some?
I think there was a debacle that went on when he did try to reach out, and he finally got everything he needed. I don't know what the holdup is now, because I know he has the product. I gave him one out of my own personal stash that I ended up getting from somebody else, and said, "Try this." And it may have been you, Andy, and said, "Hey, try this." And he tried it, and immediately, before I could get home, he was calling me saying, "I want that cigar." So, but it's just kind of a running joke now. It's like, I'm not mad that they don't carry it. I'm mad that they don't have RoMa, because I like RoMa. Everything I've had from you guys has just knocked it out of the park. Been one of those cigars that I've been like, I want another one. Almost as soon as I put it down, I want another one. So, like I said, it's more of a running joke now, more than, I'm harping on those guys.
Well, I don't know why this particular retailer does not carry our stuff, but what I can tell you is, what I can tell you is that because we don't have sales reps, because we don't just carry, it's probably there's a lot of reasons, but there's I don't know. Some of these retailers, they need to be handheld, you know, and some of them, you know, we kind of make it a little bit harder because, you know, I don't want a guy who just orders, you know, one box of something every 4 months, right? Usually the account, we only have 200 or 250 accounts in the whole country, right? So,
Wow.
we kind of really only want kind of the really dedicated people. But,
Understandable.
you know, we don't do terms. We don't give people credit. We just take credit cards. We don't do checks or COD. We don't have a sales rep. We don't discount. So there's a lot of things that we don't do that one of those things, whether it's my political views on Facebook or it's the fact that we don't discount or the fact that we don't give free product, or there's always some reason why a retailer, you know, happens to not. So, but the thing is, if it's a cigar that you want and he doesn't carry it, you're either going to smoke something else, which happens,
Yep.
but maybe you never really get that dedicated to smoking cigars because they don't really have what you like, or you're going to buy it somewhere else, right? You're going to buy it from another retailer, or you're going to buy it online, especially when online becomes frictionless and you don't have to pay the state taxes, and it just comes to your house, and it's cheaper. And that's why 70% of the cigars that are smoked in the country are bought online.
Yeah.
Or through a catalog, right?
Yeah. And
then the retailer sits there wondering why they're going out of business. You know, when I was a retailer, if somebody came in and told me, you know, I had a guy came in one of my first weeks we were open. It's like, hey, I smoke Macanudo, the shitty one, the Lonsdale and the tube.
Yeah.
Starts with the P.
pretty bad. That's what it's called.
I don't remember the name of them, but hold on, I'll look it up because now I gotta.
Well, in Tim's defense, he said he is eventually going to get it. He just isn't getting it right now. So I don't know what the story is behind that. I kind of dropped it after that point. But no, your apps, you hit a point that's absolutely right. If you're going into a cigar shop fairly regularly and you're looking for something that you want to smoke and you're not carrying it, I mean, I'm going to go find it somewhere else. You know, either go to our, you know, sponsor and say, hey, Penny, badass Penny, let's, you know, give me some RoMas because I really want some RoMas. I mean, I'm finding another way. But it is nice. It would be nice just to be able to go up the street and grab one or two or, you know, 5 and have them so I can just smoke them whenever I want.
Yeah, I have to drive to Zach's house. I mean, it's only a 45 minute drive to pick up
Yeah.
RoMa here.
So if, you know, you ever have a supply shortage, go to Zach's house because he has plenty. And, you know, he could open up his own store of RoMa. So that's just, you know, a little tip.
Yeah, I don't remember.
He's smoking them, so they're going away.
You know, the point is that this guy said, hey, I like these cigars, and, you know, I don't think they're good cigars. Macanudas in general, like Hyde Park and Hampton Courts or whatever, those are all kind of staples, but this particular one that he liked was just not very good, and it was pretty expensive for what it was. And but he said, hey, look, I'll buy one from. He wasn't a he bought one cigar every 2 or 3 weeks when he was walking downtown, when he was at the bar next door. He came in and bought one of these tubos, but he was a guaranteed sell 7 or anyway. I was the local store, and he said he wanted it, so I figured out a way to get it, and I never had it on the shelf. It was always up on the top. He was the only guy who ever bought one, who ever asked for one. But when he came in, I knew exactly what he wanted. We went in there and got that tubo for him, gave him one. You know, it was whatever it was. I made a couple of bucks on it. I couldn't have made more than $100 off the guy. It probably took me you know, I went through like a box a year or something for this guy. But I was his local shop and that's what he wanted. So that's what I carried. Right. I think there's retailers, like if I walked into a store and I said, hey, I just moved into town. I smoke $20-something thousand worth of cigars a year, but these are the brands that I demand, that I smoke. La Flor Dominicana, RoMa Craft, whatever. He's like, well, we don't carry that. Like, did you not hear what I just said? I'm gonna buy
an arm and a leg worth of cigars.
Yeah.
It's like the retailer that when you walk in the door and the little bell rings and they're annoyed they got to get up from their chair, to actually do something. It's like, oh, leave the money by the counter, and then they wonder why they're going out of business.
Yeah.
I've been to that cigar shop. It's down the street from Gibbs.
There's a lot of those cigar shops.
And it's not the one I'm talking about.
It's not the one Gibbs is talking about. Those guys are they're older, so they just don't get up and rush to do anything, which is fine. But then I now live 600 miles away, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, but if you're spending, let's say you smoke 2 cigars a week, 3 cigars a week. If you're spending $30 or $40 a week on something, $50 a week on something, you want to feel good spending the money. You want to spend it at a place where they appreciate you. It's like if you go into a bar and buy a beer every afternoon. You want them to learn your name. You want them to have your seat. You want them to know what you want. Hey, whatever it is, you don't feel so bad about spending that $50 a week because part of what you're buying is that third place, right? That,
right.
Like you have home, you have work, and then you have your third place, right? So, cigar stores for a long time were that third place. And, between, Trumpers fighting with, I miss the days when people would just sit around and talk shit about Hillary Clinton and we could all agree on it,
All right. Well, we're all now marked. Just saying.
And they say, oh, Hillary, whatever. I was like, yeah, geez, what a bitch, it's like, but now, it's like it's ruined it. It's ruined that environment. The cigar store, there's not as many of the good cigar stores like I kind of grew up in out there anymore.
Yeah.
And when I had a shop, it was one of those good places,
Yeah.
People say,
bigger. And I think it has the word headquarters written across the top of it.
Right. I mean, they say, like you're not supposed to talk about religion or sex or whatever, politics, but men in a community would hang out at cigar stores, barber shops, church, whatever. And they would talk about those things. And that's how they would form their civic mindset. You didn't have to agree, right? Like, hey, I'm going to vote for the new $1 billion bond for the school district because I feel like they need to upgrade their facilities. They need to, fix the air conditioning. They need to do all the things, and then the other guy's like, well, taxes, theft, I want charter schools, whatever. Say, right. Okay, well, I think one way, you think another way. Let's, what are you smoking? But you'd sit there and you'd say, well, listen, man, I grew up poor and school was the only safe place for me. And if it wasn't for public school, I would have been an illiterate dumbass. Right. And so, well, schools aren't like that anymore. It's like, yeah, they are. If, my parents didn't help me at all, but I found that teacher that inspired me or that coach that, taught me how to be responsible or whatever. And that all came from public school. And I can tell you, living in Nicaragua, you say what you want about American public schools. I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity for them to improve. But I also know what Nicaragua public schools look like, Yeah. And it's night and day. I mean, kids come out of Nicaragua public schools illiterate, right?
Wow.
I'm sure, the point is, I honestly don't know if schools are like that anymore or not, but I know for a lot of kids, it's the safest place for them. And I know it's the only place where they learn how to be a decent citizen. Even if they're not learning calculus, or whatever. When I read stuff people say on Facebook, it's clear there is an education problem in the United States, but, maybe just some people are stupid. So, but my point is, you could talk to some guys like we're talking now and say, here's my perspective on welfare. Here's my perspective on free lunches in schools. Here's my perspective on, Social Security death benefits, or on, all the things that got me through, to the point where I could join the military. Right.
Right.
And then the military itself is another kind of government social program, a service, but it goes both ways. I wouldn't have gotten in a college, I wouldn't have finished college if it wasn't for the military. I wouldn't have started a company if it wasn't for the things the military taught me. I wouldn't have the life I have if it wasn't for the government in my life. Now, also, there's a lot of shit the government does that I don't like. But we could sit down in a barbershop or in a cigar store, and we could talk about, listen, I have my perspective because of the way I grew up. It's not because I'm dumb or because I'm a communist. It's because of how I lived and how I grew up. And I understand it isn't just because I'm smarter and I work harder than everybody. And I did this by myself, there are a lot of days I wouldn't have eaten if it hadn't have been for some kind of government program. There's a lot of days where I would have been beaten more if it wasn't for the system, or the sheriff coming to save us from, yet another domestic abuse guy. Right.
Right.
So, in a shop or in a barber shop or in a cigar store, you could tell somebody that and go, and then they humanize you and they go, you know what? I still think you're a socialist. Well, I'm really not. I'm a capitalist, but, I think you're a liberal. Well, I'm really not. I'm pretty conservative. Well, whatever, but at least I know why you think that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And on Facebook, I have 5,000 people who are my friends or whatever. And on Instagram and, it's 20,000 or whatever the number is. I'm not really friends with more than 10 of those people, maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm probably not more than an acquaintance of no more than a couple, 500 or 600 of them.
Yeah.
And like maybe have met them. And 4,000 of them just creep there in the background to say something rude whenever whenever I trigger them. So, I think if you have to have that kind of place. You have to have that, just like what you're doing here. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's what we're losing. And it's, unfortunate.
No, that's an excellent point, because just like what you're saying, if you don't have that place where you can actually discuss these things and have a conversation about it, then you don't broaden yourself. You don't make yourself better to understand where other people are coming from. Because a lot of times, if you're like me, I work from home, so my opinions about things kind of get pigeonholed to certain things because I don't know any other perspective of it than what I feel.
Yeah,
So
work from home
you can-
people are like the adult version of homeschool kids.
exactly. So
Yeah.
you're kind
They're
of
all weird.
a
They're
little
all
bit.
weird, right, Zach? They're all weird.
Oh yeah, we're all weird.
Yeah, we are all.
We're all-
I worked remotely for most of my time at Dell. I mean, probably close to 14 years I worked remotely. So I was a remote worker before remote working became cool. But
Yeah.
you do have to have some kind of interaction with people.
Yeah.
Totally.
And if you don't express your views and learn other people's views, you don't get a holistic idea of, certain, a lot of subjects, So if you hear their side of the story, just like you're saying, you kind of broaden your horizon and open yourself up to, okay, so maybe I understand why you're coming from this a little bit more, and I'm not so angry about it.
Right.
And like I'm not so, my opinion is the best or whatever. You don't get into that mindset. You have other people to bounce things off of. You have other things. But yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
you start to realize that there are good people.
Mm-hmm.
There are good people who just have a different perspective than you do. But yeah, it softens your the hard edges that you have with people. I mean, there's people online I have zero patience for. I'm sure they're decent people. I see they have families. Why they have these hard views that they have is, I imagine it's because they just don't have any perspective. Like,
Yeah.
I have people that worked for me in Nicaragua for years that came across the border illegally and live within 20 miles of here now, right? And you run into, you call them and you meet up for a day and you see how their kids are thriving. You see that they're working 2-3 jobs, 20 hours a day to survive. You see that they're living in shitty neighborhoods with crime and whatever that is not other immigrants. It's American crime, right? And you see how they're sacrificing, and you say to them, hey, well, how do you like it? It's like, I hate it. I'd go back tomorrow, but my kids, the future of my kids is completely different now. They're speaking English. They're driving. They have friends. They're going to have full lives that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So the sacrifice that I have to go through is, for my kids.
Yeah.
How can you, if you know people like that, how can you then, because I feel like the border should be secure. I also feel like there should be a fairly easy, open immigration system. And once someone immigrates, they become American, right?
Yeah.
And that's what keeps us from being different than like all the problems you're seeing like in the UK. Because you can immigrate to the UK, but you will never be a UK citizen, right?
Right.
You may even become a citizen, but you will never be English, right? You come to America, you can become an American, right? Like, Ronald Reagan said it years ago. It's like, it's the difference. It's like, you can go to Germany and you can live in Germany your whole life and you can have German kids. You and your kids will never be German, right? But if you come here and you dedicate yourself to the same kind of values that we have as Americans, and I mean the broader values of democracy and hard work and work ethic and, those kinds of things, then you can be as American as somebody who's 5 generations been here,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My grandparents came to America. So I'm, second generation American. And think about that. That's not that long ago. That's in the early 1900s. So when you have that kind of perspective, you don't say stupid shit like, well, they came here the right way. No, they didn't. They got on a boat, fleeing bullshit, just like these people do, and they landed at El Salvador, and they said, "Are you a communist? Do you have, syphilis or tuberculosis in TB? No. Okay, we got a job for you. We need you. And by the way, vote for Tammany or whatever. Vote for
Nice.
Vote for Boss Tweed.
Right.
So, but most of these people are too stupid and too close-minded or whatever. They need people like me sitting in a cigar lounge with them explaining shit. So at least they are not hateful. At least they're not ignorant. They don't have to agree with me. But it's hard to do that, in social media. So it's just like your point about picking up the $20 cigar. It's hard to commit to buying a $20 cigar online, or a cigar you've never smoked before online and to try, right?
Yeah.
But when you're in a store and your tobacconist says, "Hey, look, man, I know what you like, and you're gonna like this one," and then it's a lot easier, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if the cigar store, kind of disappears because retailers don't do their job, or because brands kind of sell out to the online guys or whatever happens in the ecosystem. If retailers suffer, then I think cigar smoking suffers. The culture suffers, and really culture is the biggest part of it for me.
Don't think I'm going to let you slip by with, quoting Gangs of New York, because I did catch that, and I really liked it. And I think, if you compare the immigration system to that, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't quoting Gangs of New York. I was quoting world history that I learned in the 9th grade, Teapot Dome scandal. But yeah, it was also in a movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you said Tammany, and I'm like, oh, that was it. That was Gangs of New York.
It's like
right
my
there.
daughter when she sees the Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings books, and she says to me, "They made books out of that movie?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Wow. Yeah.
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 She's old enough to read those, Skip.
No, I'm talking about my 30-year-old daughter.
Oh, yeah, she's definitely old enough to read those.
Right.
I don't know if Fiorella may be old enough to read them now.
All right, what's the next? We've got 3 questions, and we've been going for an hour and a half. So.
Well, it's because we've been enjoying the shit out of listening to what you got to say, sir. So, we appreciate that.
Well, what are going to be the hot take topics? It's hard to get a 30-second Instagram clip from a 20-minute answer.
I don't know. Gibbs will get pretty good at it.
I'm doing decent at it. I'm doing decent. No, honestly, going back, we love your product.
Thank you.
Hands down, we love your product. And we appreciate the hell out of both you and Mike coming on and talking about it. I mean, it's one of those products we definitely want to get more out there for you. For lack of a better way, when we were talking to Terrence the other day from Aganorsa, we want to be a RoMa acolyte.
Yeah.
We want to preach the RoMa word,
A weasel.
Yes.
Yeah, we could be a weasel. Okay.
So, here's the thing, man. There's no magic tobacco. I say this is another thing I say all the time. A friend of mine, Carlos, says there's no tobacco from Mars. We all use the same tobacco. It's like if you go to a restaurant, most of these restaurants, they buy their ingredients from Cisco or whatever. There's nobody who has, a special magic source of tobacco that makes your cigars better. It just doesn't exist. And so, it's a combination of a lot of things that you do: time, patience, taking care of your people, having consistency, quality. There's all these things that kind of wrap up in it. But, most of the cigars on the cigar market are pretty good today. You walk into a humidor, even a poorly a poorly crew rated humidor at a half-ass retailer, most of the cigars in there are going to be pretty decent. I think it kind of boils down to personal preference, right?
Yeah.
But for me, what I make cigars that I like, and to fill holes of, kind of. Sometimes I want something a little bit milder. Sometimes I want something really strong. I blended the Neanderthal. I don't smoke a lot of those because that is a closer, but when I made it, I loved it. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And for some people, that's their favorite cigar. Sometimes I just shift to something else. And, like right now, I'm kind of more on the lighter medium side of smaller ring gauge cigars. So, but I think if you do your job correctly and you make something that someone likes, the key is to continue to make it that way, and also make it run your business in a way where you can sell it at a fair price. Unfortunately, a lot of people look at our cigars and go, "Oh, they can't be as good as the other one because they're $5 cheaper," right? But the people who smoke two or three a day, they go, "Look, this cigar is easily as good, if not better, than this other one over time, specifically. And the fact that it's $4 or $5 cheaper, you have to understand why that is. But that's once people kind of key into that, if it's a cigar that they like, whether it's Aquitaine or EC or a mixture of all of them, right? I always say also if you don't find a cigar somewhere in our portfolio that you don't really like, you probably don't like smoking cigars, because there's something in there, for everybody. And they're consistent and they're a good price, and what is there to not like about them, right?
Absolutely.
So
That Skip guy's kind of questionable, but that's not going to keep me from buying the cigars.
that's right. I mean, whatever. There's plenty of guys out there who are so full of shit. Some people just like to be in a cult. Some people just like to be, fooled. So whatever.
Well, it's getting to the sad part. I'm down to the nub of mine. So we're probably going to rate this for you. But for mine, I mean, you knocked it out of the park again. Great freaking cigar. I mean, start to finish.
That's a Segundo, so that's probably a $2 cigar. Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Okay.
Thank you, man.
It's great. I don't want to put it down. I'm going to let it continue burning my lips until I can't get any more out of it. Didn't leave a film on my mouth, which everybody knows. If for me, it leaves a film on my mouth, it takes me right out of the cigar. I don't like it. So for this one, I'm probably going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. I do like probably 2 other lines a little bit better than this one. 1 second. And that's kind of the only reason I'm knocking it down just a little bit, because those other 2 that I've had just floored me. So, but this one, again, I would pick it up in a heartbeat if I found it in my local tobacconist. So 4.5, it's good.
So the question is, if your local tobacconist won't carry it, you got to figure out a place to get them, right? You got to buy.
Exactly.
You got to support one of these little guys that'll ship it to you, like
Exactly.
Cigar Hustler or my son-in-law at Riverside, or the Creto, or there's a bunch of places. Tommy up at Nickel City, Small Bat. There's a lot of places that'll send them to you. You got to find that and stop buying those.
Right.
Stop buying those $23 Placencias. No.
Right? No, we rely pretty heavy on Penny. If we can't find something we really wanted, we'll call Penny up in New Hampshire.
Yeah, she has
She'll
them.
send the stuff. Yeah, she sends it. She's a big fan of RoMa.
Yeah, she
Talk
has
about
them.
them a lot. Yeah, she loves them. So we usually ask her.
Gives
But,
us nice
Andy.
gives us nice enough to text Penny one time and go, look, I just had this RoMa thing. This is awesome. I want to buy some more. So she ends up sending, 20 cigars between the 5 of us? Here,
She did.
There you go.
try these.
Yeah, Penny's great.
Penny's awesome.
That Penny's awesome.
She's kind of crazy, but in a good way.
She's crazy in a good way.
Very crazy. Lovable.
These are kind of crazy.
Yeah, she's
That's
definitely
right.
crazy.
She's a not boring kind of crazy.
There you go. How about you, Andy?
I think this is the second time I've smoked the Quincenario. Yeah, that'll work.
It's Ken, like Ken and Barbie.
Okay.
Like the Jerry, I want the Qua.
Huh?
Gin, like the drink. Ario, like Ario.
Quincenario.
Ken,
Got it.
Qua, Gin, Ario. It's Italian, not Spanish, by the way.
That's where I'm struggling with it. It's delicious, and
Thank you, man.
I know it doesn't come from the RoMa Craft factories in beautiful Nicaragua, but
Yeah, it's almost all Dominican except for the wrapper, which is Sumatra. It's almost all Dominican, but it doesn't taste like a Dominican cigar. So
Nope.
Yeah.
it hits all the points, and for me, and I won't list them because they're long and distinguished. But
It took a long time to be able to make a Nicaraguan cigar in the Dominican with Dominican tobacco.
I'll bet.
I mean, to make a RoMa cigar. I mean, it tastes like a RoMa cigar.
Mhm.
So,
But on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm definitely going to give it a 5 because when I find them, I'll grab one, and if I need Penny to send me some, I'll get her to send me some. Skip, I think we met once, and it's been eons ago, probably in Atlanta at Buckhead. But
that was a great shop.
It is a great shop.
Oh, it's still there?
It's
Yes.
Mike and
That was a good job.
still there.
Yeah.
Goes and visits on occasion, and Mike gives him shit about talking to me and still knowing me and referencing back to our friendship. So
He doesn't even smoke cigars anymore, does he?
nope.
Yeah, it was a whole different place 10 years ago.
Oh, it was.
It was.
He was.
It was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And his Asian partner,
Borum.
Borum, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He used to drive around in that FJ.
Oh yeah, the mobile cigar
Yeah.
lounge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mike's a good guy, but he was not on a healthy path. So it's good that he found that, I guess.
he had a scare and got that taken care of. And the last I saw him, he had lost a bunch of weight, looked good for being an old crotchety man with his
Right.
cigar shop and not smoking cigars, still talking shit. So, but yeah, for me, this is a 5. And most of the aromas I think I've had have been 4.5s to 5s because they hit right. Their price point is, you do a great job of keeping the price where I can't afford to smoke 2 or 3 of them a day if that was my goal.
Right.
And I usually buy them like I want to smoke 3 or 4 of them at a day. It's 100 fucking degrees out here. I'm not smoking 4 or 5 cigars on the patio.
Yeah, it's actually about 100 here also, but probably not as humid as where you are.
Well, I'm in Louisiana, and the water table's 3 inches below the ground, and there's a pond behind my house. So
Right.
Zach's down the street, so I know it's just as hot for him. But I'll stop running my mouth and let Zach talk.
Well, this is also my second Ken Gin area,
There you go.
and I love the first one, and this one was just as good, and definitely tastes like a RoMa. It's got all the complexity that I would want out of it, and as I'm getting towards the end of it, it has, I want there to be more of it, but I'm glad I can enjoy it the size that it was made. And so I tend to rate RoMa pretty highly also, and I kind of echo a little bit of what Andy's saying about the cigar. It's just solid and tastes great start to finish, and I'm also going to give it a 5 out of 5 leaves. Even though probably my favorite RoMa right now is the Intemperance EC, which is very different from this, I think. But it's a great cigar, and I know it's like a limited release, but if it ever shows up again, or I can get one at an event or something, like I got this one, then I definitely will. Really, really good cigar.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, with that,
I would give mine a 5 also. I think it's an Oct 9 or an Oct something Ultra. Came in a flat box, like 20 cigars.
Mm-hmm.
I found them, and then I of course I started calling every cigar store in the country I could find that may have them, so I could accumulate them. I don't know if they made them more than one time, but they're really, really good.
that's awesome. So, on that note, Skip, is there anything you want to, put out there? Say we're gonna give you the floor, so you can, say what you want to say. Or if you don't want to say anything, that's cool too.
Do you all have
Fresh.
anything new coming out that we haven't tried yet?
Yeah,
Maybe you can talk about.
yeah. So this year we launched the Pennsylvania broadleaf, the Cro-Magnon. We replaced the original Cro-Magnon. That's been going really well. Volstead, we launched last year, is still pretty new for us. That's one that I smoke a lot every day. But we have a new source of. We started buying from a new kind of. It's an old source, but we started buying directly. Now that we have our own pre-industry, we do our own fermentation and everything. So instead of buying kind of finished tobacco, we went to the source, our friends in Mexico, but the process we end up with some lighter colored San Andres, and so I've been working on a blend for years, kind of a lighter San Andres blend. Like I said, I smoke a lot of these Padrones. I'm not trying to say I tried to blend a Padrone, but I really like this kind of medium, it's not real easy to make a kind of a more moderate cigar with Nicaraguan tobacco. So I've been working on this for a long time, especially now that we control our own pre-industry. We could do more that we couldn't do before. And so we launched it as we have this new project called Craft Maquette. I don't know if you guys know, a maquette is like when an architect is designing a building, they'll make like a little scale model. Or if a sculptor is doing a really big piece, they'll make a small piece to kind of just make sure everything works out and how it's going to look. And like an architect is looking at light and space and stuff like material. And so now that we have our pre-industry, we've had it for about 2 years. We pick up tobaccos we wouldn't otherwise buy. We try different ways of fermenting. We do all these things. So we end up with these little pockets of tobacco that, are kind of just sitting there. So sometimes when we start trying to figure out what we could do with those tobaccos, we make, test blends or whatever. Sometimes they're really good. And so what you try to do is do them on scale. So you try to do 500 or 600 of them in order to determine how the yields are going to work, what the bunching method should be, what sizes it works in, how they age, things like that. And then you end up with, 500 or 1,500 of this cigar or 2,000 of this cigar. So it's not really enough to do anything with. So we started this Craft Maquette. Instead of doing an annual craft every year, we try to do 3 or 4 of these a year. They're little, craft bundles. And so this particular one is one that we did over a year ago that I've been smoking so much that we decided to make it our next core blend. That comes out in October. The Maquette is out right now. There's probably 15 or 20 stores in the country that have it. This weekend, for example, Tommy at Nickel City, 75-year anniversary, he's going to have some. La Cultura may still have some left. Maybe Cigar Den may have some left, but more retailers are going to be getting them this month. And then the core line comes out in October. So it's packaged kind of the same way Wanderlust is packaged, which is 2 20-count bundles and a 40-count box.
Yep.
And it's only available in the U.S. Because the Mirafeld family, I don't know if you know the Mirafelds, they're famous for growing Cameroon tobacco. He has his own cigar line now, actually, but they've long had their own cigar stuff in Europe. And we kind of started the trademark process at the same time independently. And because we had the U.S. mark, and because they had already started making and marketing a cigar in Europe, we gave them the European mark. And so they have Europe it's a whole different kind of bundled, completely different cigar. But in the U.S., we own this mark, but because of this trademark issue, we can only sell this cigar in the U.S. But it's really, really good. It's coming out. It's a box press. Comes in 3 sizes. The maquette is 4 3/4 by 56 box press. The 3 sizes are 4 by 52, which is great. I smoke a lot of the 4 by 46s, and then the box press, the 4 by 42, kind of feels the same. A 5 by 60 box press and 6 by 52. So that's coming out in October. We've only done 6-7 brands our whole 15-year career, so it's not that often that we come out with a new brand, much less 2 in 1 year. So that's a big thing for us.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Also, if you ever need a tester, the leaf cutters are available. You just have to send the samples. That's all we need. That's all we ask.
We do our own testing, and then you guys get to get it after that. So you're gonna have to find a new place to.
Yeah.
You need to find a good steady retailer like Penny, and buy it. Stop smoking, all the other stuff.
Right.
I mean, you want to smoke enough of the other stuff so that you remind yourself that's too expensive, that's not as good. So you always kind of come back to your core,
to appreciate it. To appreciate it even more. Yeah, I totally get that.
I tell my wife, that's how it works with women, and she doesn't agree. So
It's a little bit harder sell.
yeah, one's enough for me.
Before we wrap it up, I did want to say I had a bunch of technical issues earlier, but I did want to mention this. One of the things I kind of appreciate about RoMa Craft is the variety of vitolas that you release, and I really like those small vitolas like the Petite Corona and stuff that are just real small, but just pack a great punch for that size.
Thanks. Another, we were talking about making cigars earlier. It really doesn't cost that much more to make a really big cigar than it does to make a small cigar. Because we talked about the wrapper, filler, binder, right? So if the filler is 40 cents and the wrapper is 40 cents and the labor is 30 cents, as an example, a 4x46 may have 10% less filler. It has more waste, because you break a lot more of the tobacco, right? And that becomes picadura. And maybe you can use smaller wrappers, right? But you still have to use a whole wrapper leaf. So maybe the yield is, you get, 12 pounds per thousand instead of 15 pounds per thousand. So maybe you're saving 10 or 15% there. But on average, it still has, if an average cigar has 40, 40, 30, 4x46 is 30, 30, 30, right? And a 6x60 is 45, 40, 30, right? So, you're talking about 20, 30 cents different in terms of how much it costs to make it. So some people look at it like a big gulp, where I got to get the 64 ounce 6x60 to make it a good value, right? Which I don't understand that mentality. Our cigars are so dense, a 4.5x60 smokes a lot longer than most 6x60.
Right.
But the point being, an $8 4x46, some people look at it and go, well, that's really expensive for a little bitty cigar. And then they'll pay, $12 for the same blend in a 6x60. But especially if you're smoking, in a car ride to work or a car ride home, or, you're out in 100-degree heat and you only have, you only want to spend 30, 40, long enough to drink a big thing of iced tea. A 4x46 for me is become kind of the size I smoke the most. 4.5. Anything over 5 inches is really too much for me anymore. Anything over, 52 is usually too much for me anymore. But it's funny when the older you get, the smaller and more mild the cigars get.
I'll agree with that because I remember
Yeah.
smoking cigars in my 20s that were 7 by 50, 7 by 60, and now I'd much prefer the 4.5s or 4.5s or 5s by 60 and 50, 60. That just hits for me. I
Right.
can agree with that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you saying that.
Well, we appreciate you taking your time to come on here, talk to us about RoMa Craft, talk about the process, talk about everything you talked about, which gives us and our followers and our watchers a little bit more insight to understand what goes into making a good quality cigar that doesn't break the bank. And that's one of the things that we do tell people is like, look, you can get a quality cigar that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. Just look at what RoMa Craft's doing. You're a great example of that, and we appreciate it. We appreciate the product. We appreciate everything about RoMa, really.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my recommendation to you guys would be to get down to Nicaragua, and maybe the first trip you go on one of these, like where you're self-contained and they're prophesizing their cigars are the best or whatever. But once you get to a point where you can just go down there and visit a couple of factories, you can go see Oveja Negra, you can go see us, you can go see Little Chinchales, you can go see Drew Estate, whatever, AJ, and you kind of start seeing the more you see how different people do things different ways, you understand why cigars are different, but also you understand that the processes are kind of all the same. Making a hamburger is making a hamburger, no matter if it's at McDonald's or whatever. But the meat in a Big Mac is not exactly the same as the meat that's in a Five Guys or whatever. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you didn't put yourself on that list. So are you saying if we go to Nicaragua, we can't tour your factory?
I was the second one after Oveja
Hey,
Negra.
he said that.
Okay.
So it's this hard.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I'm just going deaf in my old age.
All right. Well, I got to get on a plane to Nicaragua in a couple hours. So been good hanging out with you guys. Glad I
Absolutely.
could
So
make it.
thanks for hanging out with us. And on that note, we're going to say good night.
All right, guys.
Good night.